They'll get nothing. Not a penny. I stood frozen in the hallway, my breath caught in my chest. That familiar voice echoed from behind the heavy brown wooden door of the study. Harold Adams. My father was talking to my mother. I've made my decision, Diane. We're selling the company. Everest Holdings offered $50 million. It's a good deal. We'll use part of it for retirement. The rest will go to a charitable foundation. The Adams Foundation. Enough to leave a legacy. The kids need to learn to stand on their own. For a long moment, there was no response. I pictured my mother, the woman who always avoided conflict with a glass of Chardonnay, nodding as she always did. I stood still, bathed in the soft golden light from the familiar chandelier. My heart beat slowly, but with intense tension. What I'd been waiting for over the past 10 years was now happening. But not like a storm, more like the final move in a chess game. And I was the one making the last move. Everest Holdings. $50 million. They didn't know I was Everest. My name is Monica Adams, 32 years old. The middle child of the Adams family, a name tied to a long-established software company in Boston. From the outside, we were the picture of American success. A historic mansion in the heart of Brookline. A multinational company built over 3 generations, 3 promising children. But behind the wrought iron gates and ivy-covered walls was something I never had recognition. My father Harold was an old-school authoritarian man who lived by the belief that only sons could inherit the family legacy. Garrett, my older brother, couldn't write a single line of code, but straight out of college, he was handed the vice president's chair. At 22, fresh from graduating MIT with honors, I presented a comprehensive digital transformation plan. I prepared slides, wrote detailed reports, analyzed markets' technology costs, only for my father to cut me off mid-meeting. That's enough, Monica. It sounds nice, but it's not practical. Customers don't need academic ideas. They need stability. My youthful spirit shattered under the dismissive gazes of my father's old friends. I closed my laptop, gathered my documents, and walked out of that mahogany-paneled room and out of my old life. My mother, Diane, never said anything wrong, because she never said anything definitive. A classic Boston woman, she sidestepped conflict with grace and white wine. My younger sister, Megan, was a social media princess. She knew nothing about software, but knew how to turn every party into content. For her, Adams Software was just a backdrop for her tech aristocracy personal brand. I, the middle child, the most capable but most overlooked, turned neglect into motivation. I left Boston quietly. No one saw me off. No one asked where I was going. They thought I was rebelling. They didn't know I was determined to build something they couldn't control. San Francisco was where it all began. A tiny room in Soma, instant noodles, secondhand clothes, freelance coding to survive. I took the alias Emmy Stone, a name unconnected to Adams. I wanted to be judged for my skills, not my lineage. 3 years later, I had 10 employees. By year 5, I acquired a partner company of Adams Software. By year 8, Everest Holdings was valued at $200 million, and I knew the game was reaching its end. This Thanksgiving, I came home. No longer the forgotten daughter, but the CEO of the company, about to buy out my own father. I didn't bring anger. I brought truth. The Brookline mansion was unchanged, the lion statue at the gate, the gabled roof, the heavy teak door. When I walked in, Maria, our longtime housekeeper, was the first to recognize me. "Miss Monica," she smiled. "You're back. You look so different." I smiled back. "I'm the same Maria, just sleeping better now." My mother emerged from the kitchen, her eyes scanning my Chanel suit, the Patek Philippe on my wrist. "Patek?" she asked. "Yes." I smiled, offering no further explanation. She didn't ask. The living room buzzed with Megan's live stream. My family's prepping for Thanksgiving. Yes, I just saw Monica. "She's back from San Francisco." Garrett lounged on the sofa, a glass of scotch in hand. "Back, huh? Still working on those apps," he smirked. "Something like that," I replied lightly. I wasn't here to argue. I went to my old room. It was unchanged, MIT poster on the wall, dusty tech competition trophies, a diary on the shelf. A museum of me frozen at 22. Here I'd never grown up. And then, as I was about to change, I heard it. My father's voice from the study we've signed with Everest Holdings. 50 million. Nothing for the kids. My heart stilled. Not because of the money, not because he wasn't sharing, but because he didn't ask. I still remember the cold weight of the wireless microphone in my hand when my father raised his hand mid-presentation and said, "That's enough, Monica. You did well, but this is a real business, not a theory class." He gave a perfunctory smile while the board members, all men over 50. His longtime friends nodded and exchanged polite, distant glances. I stood frozen in that mahogany room, my slide on cloud platform integration still on the screen. My proposal outlined a system to connect enterprise data in real time, something every startup is now building. But back then, to my father, it was just a fanciful experiment. I didn't cry. I closed my laptop, thanked them for their time, and walked out into the hallway. My temporary employee badge slipped from its clip like a farewell. I knew then if I wanted to be seen, I had to leave. 3 weeks later, I moved to San Francisco. No goodbyes, no moving back to my mother's. Just 3 suitcases, some clothes, a laptop, and $5,000 saved from tutoring and academic awards. I rented a 22-square-meter studio in the Mission District. No windows, moldy walls, a fold-up bed against the wall. I started with small freelance gigs installing plugins, fixing basic website bugs, then gradually getting hired for system integrations for growing startups. I worked day and night, 80 hours a week was average. Nights coding, mornings invoicing, afternoons, walking to a small Valencia street cafe for lunch, diluted black coffee and discounted cookies. But I felt free. For the first time, I didn't need anyone's permission to make decisions. And more importantly, I was no longer in Garrett's shadow. A few months later, I took a pseudonym, Emmy Stone. Emmy was short for Monica Elizabeth, but no one knew. I wanted to start from zero, untied to the Adams name. I set up a company account, a website, and hired a logo from a recent design grad. Everest Holdings was born on a rickety kitchen table, its name evoking the highest mountain, like the goal I set for myself to reach the peak, step by step, with no one's help. The first year I barely survived. I slept with the light on to scare off roaches. I skipped parties, Thanksgivings, Christmases, but I coded like I was possessed, each line a way to finish the story I wasn't allowed to tell in that boardroom. In year 2, I built the first version of a cloud integration platform, a middleware that connected legacy systems to modern services without rewriting entire architectures. It was an advanced, more flexible version of the idea I'd pitched to my father. Clients started coming. First small startups, then mid-sized companies undergoing digital transformation. I didn't raise capital early, I wanted total control. Every dollar of profit went back into the product hiring coders, renting a small office on the 4th floor of an old Soma building. By year 4, I had 15 employees, each one a warrior, young, bold, and uninterested in who I was. They only knew Emmy, the founder, who read every error log, fixed bugs at 2 a.m., and listened. In year 5, I started acquiring small companies, perfect puzzle pieces to enhance services for larger clients. I learned to negotiate, read financials, and spot when a company was nearing bankruptcy before it went public. I stayed anonymous in deals, used a different legal name, avoided press interviews. When I had to appear, I let my COO speak. I changed my hairstyle, used my middle name, wore glasses. No one knew Emmy Stone was Monica Adams. I also started reading Adams Software's financial reports, my father's company. Declining profits, outdated products, clients complaining about incompatible platforms. I knew they were struggling, but what surprised me was their refusal to change. Garrett was still vice president. No significant new products in 3 years. I realized they didn't need me, but they needed someone to save the dying child they didn't know how to nurture. In year 8, I began a long-term strategy. Everest Holdings quietly bought small stakes in Adams Software's auxiliary software suppliers. I spent money to hold silent positions in companies Adams depended on. I didn't want a direct attack. I wanted to create a situation where I was their only option. In year 9, I drafted a partnership proposal Everest would invest capital and technology preserving the Adams Software brand. I sent it through an intermediary, no name, no address, just Phoenix proposal. I still remember the response my father flatly refused. We don't accept investments from anonymous partners. We don't need anyone's help. I smiled, reading that, history repeating itself. But this time I was ready. I met with Everest's board. All agreed a full acquisition was the next step. We'd buy Adam's software outright at above market price for quick approval. I personally led the deal still as CEO Emmy Stone. All documents went through lawyers. All personal information was tightly guarded. A week before Thanksgiving, I signed the final contract. Everything was done. Only the official announcement remained. I booked a private flight, packed my suitcase cashmere coat, Chanel dress, Patek Philippe watch, subtle signals of success. Only those from that world would recognize. Before leaving the office, I paused to look out at the San Francisco Bay through the glass window. This city had seen me fall, rise, and rebuild myself. It didn't embrace me like family once did, but at least it didn't try to define me. I thought of my father, his voice in that boardroom. I once wanted his approval. Now I didn't need it. But I wanted him to understand that his silence back then created Everest. The next morning, I boarded the private jet, a luxury I rarely used, though I could. This time I wanted them to see, not to boast, but to look them in the eye without bowing. I didn't bring a legal team, no assistant. This flight was mine alone. When the plane's wheels touched down in Boston, I knew the final game had begun. The dining table set for 12 was draped in silk, adorned with mint-scented candles, seasonal flowers, and calligraphed place cards. My father sat at the head, his face stern but unable to hide a peculiar joy. Something in the way he poured wine and called for a toast told me he was waiting for his moment to announce. "Let us give thanks," he began in a warm, steady voice. "For a prosperous year, for our children's growth, for this family's legacy." Garrett, to his right, nodded smugly. "This year I signed 3 major contracts with European clients. Adam's software is expanding into Germany, a big step forward." Megan chimed in. "I helped promote the brand. My TikTok campaign, Legacy in Code, got 1.2 million views. Dad, did you know someone even got the company logo tattooed on their shoulder?" I gave a faint smile, polite but not enthusiastic. My mother, as usual, sipped her wine. She was still beautiful, still silent, her eyes gliding over each child, as if checking for cracks in an old crystal glass. When it was my turn, my father looked up as if suddenly remembering I was there. "And you, Monica?" he asked, half curious, half out of forced courtesy. I set my fork down. "I learned a valuable lesson," I said, meeting his gaze. "That some doors are closed, not because they're wrong, but because the keyholder never believed they'd need to open them." Silence fell for a few seconds. Megan rolled her eyes. Garrett shrugged. "Startup philosophy." My father chuckled, clapping twice to signal Maria to bring out the main course. The clink of cutlery filled the air. The aroma of sauce rose. I felt strangely calm. For years, I thought I'd tremble or rage when this moment came. But no, I just felt ready. As the main course neared its end, my father abruptly set his glass down. "I have good news," he declared, his voice cutting through all chatter. All eyes turned to him. "Adam's software has secured a major deal," he said, his eyes gleaming with victory. "We've agreed to sell the company to a large investment group, Everest Holdings, for $50 million. A figure that reflects the value we've built. And the special part is, we're leaving nothing. Not a dime for the kids." A heavy silence fell like a velvet curtain. Megan stopped chewing. Garrett yanked his napkin. My mother set her glass down, her eyes flickering. Garrett reacted first. "What did you say? Sell the company?" "Without asking me, I'm the vice president. I've worked there for nearly 10 years. My father waved a hand as if Garrett were complaining about under-salted mashed potatoes. "It's my company. I decide. You kids will make your own way as I did." Megan leaned forward. "You mean I have to earn money? Like actually work?" I stayed silent. I wasn't surprised. I'd known this was coming. But I also knew now was the time. I calmly reached into my purse, opened the leather clasp, and pulled out a business card. Silver, platinum, edged, embossed lettering. I placed it on the table in front of my father. He frowned, picked it up. His eyes scanned the text, Emmy Stone founder and CEO, Everest Holdings. He froze. "I'm the one who bought your company." I said, my voice steady. "I am Everest Holdings. The table went silent. Garrett shot up his chair, tipping back. What? This is a joke, right? You work for some small tech company. I looked at him. No, Garrett. I founded that company. I built it. No one helped. And Dad sold Adam's software to his own daughter without knowing. Megan grabbed her phone. Oh my God. I have to live stream this. This is a legit plot twist, don't my mother whispered. Her first words. Her eyes were on me, not avoiding this time. She was watching. Truly watching. My father still held the card. His fingers trembled slightly. You deceived me, he said softly. You hid your identity. You betrayed me. I shook my head. No, I just did what you taught me. Stand on my own. Be independent. And wait for the right moment. You always wanted a winner. I won. I looked at him, not angry, not proud, just truthful. What about the company? Garrett said, still reeling. What are you going to do with it? Sell it, dissolve it? No, I replied. I'll restructure it, bring it back to where it deserves to be. But this time, not with the Adams name, with merit. Megan lowered her phone for once, not filming herself. So, you're a millionaire, I'm the one who was underestimated, and now I'm the one in control. No one spoke. My father set the card down as if it weighed more than the silver plate before him. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a vast emptiness inside, because this could have been a family journey if they'd ever believed in me. My mother poured more wine, but didn't drink. She kept looking at me. As I stood, I said only, "Thank you for dinner," and I left the table in absolute silence. I didn't expect him to show up. I didn't think he'd have the courage. 3 days after Thanksgiving, when everything had settled, like the first snow outside my office window, Garrett walked in. No appointment, no secretary, no invitation. I was meeting with the Northeast Regional Director when my assistant knocked lightly. "Ma'am, a man named Garrett Adams is waiting in the lobby. He says you'll want to see him." I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window where Boston's streets moved slowly in winter's gray. Then I nodded. "Let him in." Garrett walked in with an awkwardness I'd never seen in him. No tailored suit, no expensive cologne. He wore an old wool coat, his hair disheveled, eyes shadowed. In his hands were a stack of documents and a cream-colored envelope. "I wasn't sure you'd agree to see me," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "But thank you." I gestured to the chair across from me, unsmiling. "Sit." He sat, placed the documents on the table, and handed me the envelope. "Handwritten," he said. "No lawyers, no oversight. No one knows about this but you and me." I opened the envelope. A single sheet, slightly scrawled, but unmistakably Garrett's handwriting, the only thing unchanged since elementary school. I didn't read it yet. I set it down and looked at him. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice light but firm. Garrett took a deep breath. "I thought you deserved to hear it from me, not through internal audits or the press." I didn't respond, just nodded, slightly waiting. "I embezzled," he said bluntly, his eyes not wavering. "Transferred funds to hidden accounts, under the guise of market research contracts. Total, nearly $1.3 million. Over 3 years. My throat tightened, not because of the amount, but because of how he said it. No excuses, no blame. Why, Garrett gave a sad smile. Because I was stupid. And because I was jealous. He looked at me. "Did you know growing up everyone always said how smart you were? You were the genius, the kid everyone had to watch out for. I was spoiled. I was given power. But I knew I didn't have that ability." I stayed silent. Memories of old family dinners flashed me reading coding books Garrett praised for throwing a good pitch. I thought if I did something big, Dad would look at me the way he looked at you. I wouldn't have to live in your shadow anymore. He placed a hand on the documents. "It's all here. Fake contracts, account numbers, passwords. You can give it to legal. Or the police. I won't fight it." I picked up the documents. They were heavier than I expected. Not just paper, but history. "I don't want to hate you forever," I said, eyes on the papers. "But I can't ignore this. Garrett nodded. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to start over. If not with the company, then with myself. I looked up. Are you prepared to pay it back? Already transferred everything back to the company account, he said, handing me a transaction confirmation. Last night. I took it saying nothing. Resign. I emailed the board this morning. Dad might be furious, but it's the right thing. I looked at him for a long time. The brother who once sat in the glass office on the top floor now faced me without ego, without polish. I have a proposal, I said slowly. Apply to Wharton's MBA program. If you're accepted, Everest will cover your tuition. After 2 years, if you really want to come back, interview like any other candidate. No favors, no Adam's name. Garrett stared as if he couldn't believe his ears. You're giving me a chance. Not because I forgive you, but because I want to know if you can become a man I can respect. Silence settled. Snow began falling outside the window. The first flakes of the season, pure, gentle, real. Garrett stood. You're the woman I both fear and admire, Monica. I looked up. I was once the sister you never saw. He nodded, heading for the door. Before leaving, he turned. You know that moment you placed your card on the dinner table? I'd never felt so small, but I'd also never wanted to grow up so much. The door closed behind him. I sat there, hand resting on his handwritten letter, inked in blue, and genuine regret. Garrett might never be the heir our father wanted, but maybe just this once he was becoming himself. I woke to a soft knock. 3 taps. Firm, but unhurried. As if the knocker was asking permission to enter both my past and present. I wasn't expecting anyone. Garrett had left the city. Megan was in Paris with a new deal for a luxury brand. My father, I didn't think he'd come. When I opened the door, she was there. My mother. Her hair was neatly pinned, impeccable. A long, ash-gray coat-leather gloves, and the classic handbag I remembered from when she took me to my high school scholarship ceremony. Back then, I'd thought Mom looks like a painting, but distant like a closed window. Are you free? Her voice was soft. I stepped back, opening the door wider. She walked in slowly, scanning the room, the only world I'd had in this vast house. The MIT poster was still there. The desk lamp had yellowed. The room was smaller than she remembered, I guessed. Or I'd outgrown it long ago. She sat by the window, where I'd studied through winter at 16. I said nothing, letting her start. It's been a week, she began, hands-clasped, eyes fixed on the light outside. A week, and I still haven't dared say anything. I sat on the bed facing her, waiting. I heard everything she said. From the meeting, from Garrett, from your father. But the only person I wanted to hear was you. I gave a faint smile, but my heart sank. You could have listened 10 years ago. But you didn't. She turned to me. For the first time I saw those eyes, always lightly made up, always restrained, glisten with tears. You're right, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't speak up. I always thought silence kept the family together. I believed if I didn't stir things, they'd pass. That your father would soften. That you'd understand. She paused, swallowing hard. But I was wrong. Terribly wrong. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to stay composed. Another part just wanted to collapse into her arms, like when I was little, when I had a fever and she sat by me stroking my hair all night. I didn't know, she continued, how far you had to go, what you sacrificed, how lonely you must have been. I saw your success, but not the scars you carried. I couldn't hold back. Tears fell silently, not from anger, but because finally, I was seen. Not as smart little Monica, but as Monica, a person who needed acknowledgement. I'm sorry, she said, for letting you face it all alone. We sat in silence in that old room that had witnessed so many tears from being overlooked, from feeling like a shadow. After a while, she pulled a folder from her bag and placed it on the table. This is my resignation from the Adams Foundation board, she said. I've signed it. I want Natalie Maria's daughter to take my place. I looked up, stunned. Natalie, the daughter of our housekeeper of 20 years, was now a Harvard student studying community development. I've watched her, my mother said. She's like you, Monica. Quiet, resilient. She deserves a chance, and I believe she'll steer the foundation right." Before I could respond, she pulled out another envelope. "And this is my application to join an organization supporting women founders. I'm not tech-savvy, but I know how to organize events, raise funds, and listen." I studied her, the woman I'd thought would forever be a beautiful shadow beside my father, now stepping out of her old role through her own choices. "I can't turn back time," she whispered, "but I can change the present. And if you'll allow, I want to be here for the first time as a real mother." I didn't speak. I just moved closer, sat on the floor, and rested my head on her knee, like when I was teased for studying like a boy. When she was the only one who stroked my hair and said, "You don't need to be like anyone else. Just be you." She stroked my hair slowly, warmly. I let the tears fall, no longer hiding. After a while, she whispered, "You didn't break this family." "Monica, you're fixing it." I looked up. The afternoon light slanted through the window, illuminating her face, tired but peaceful. I smiled, a real smile, the first in years. I never imagined a company headquarters could feel like home. Yet this morning, walking through the glass doors of Adam's Everest Technologies, the new name post-merger, I felt like I was returning to where I belonged. Not a place I had to fight for. Not a place I had to win to be seen. A place I could breathe. The building was still the old Cambridge headquarters, but everything had changed. A new logo hung in the lobby, intertwined A and E elegant silver. Systems were fully digitized. Meeting rooms were named after women pioneers in tech. The engineering team was now 40% female, something deemed unrealistic 6 months ago. And the biggest surprise was my father. He declined an executive role after the deal. I thought it was silent protest, but he didn't leave. Instead, he took the honorary chairman title, a symbolic role, and started spending 2 days a week in the office. At first, he said little, just sat in the company library reading reports. But gradually, he offered short, sharp insights, without, for the first time, any imposition. I don't know when he changed. Maybe after our talk, where I didn't argue or plead. I just told him my 10-year journey in the calmest voice I could muster. I said I'd once hated him, but not anymore. Because without his rejection, there'd be no Everest. He listened. No rebuttals, no dismissal. Just silence for a long time. The next week he asked me to keep an old portrait, him and my grandfather, at the 1982 product launch. I hung it up next to a new one. For the first time, my photo hung beside theirs. Not smaller, not off-center. 3 generations, not to prove power, but to remind us of a legacy healed. Garrett calls me once a month. Short calls, usually on Friday nights while he's in study group at Wharton. He asks about competitive strategy, handling ethical dilemmas in business. His voice is different, less boastful, more questioning. I hear effort in every word. This time he said recently, "I'm not chasing recognition anymore. I just want to understand what I never dared learn." I told him understanding is the first step. Daring to look back is the real beginning. Megan surprised me most. The former social media princess became the company's brand ambassador, but not the glitzy influencer kind. She's now a true storyteller. We launched a content channel, Code Her, where Megan hosts interviews with female engineers, founders, researchers. She's learning to listen. For the first time, I saw my sister, quiet, absorbed in someone else's story. You know, she said after filming an episode, girls from Texas came here because of our videos, I think. I found a real role. My mother surprised me most of all. She resigned from all honorary positions. She joined a nonprofit supporting girls in STEM, not as a donor, but a volunteer. Every Wednesday, she goes to a community center teaching girls to write emails, pitch ideas. I joined her once. Seeing my mother, once meticulous in every glance, sitting on the floor with kids, I had to turn away to hide my tears. "You know," she whispered as we left, helping those girls write the opening lines of their dreams. "It feels like rewriting my own youth." And today is Thanksgiving. For the first time in years, we didn't gather in the mansion's grand dining room. No staff, no 12-seat table, no gold calligraphed menus. We ate on the second floor of the company headquarters, converted into a lounge. A round table, simple wooden chairs. Mom brought pumpkin soup she made herself. Garrett brought cornbread from a classmate's recipe. Megan made salad, and of course posted a short story, Mom's Thanksgiving, not for show. I made the turkey. My first time. And I began to understand why people keep it not for taste, but for the memories it ties to generations. No one competed to speak. No one gave speeches. No one needed to prove anything. We all had faults. We were all healing. And for the first time I felt we were together. Truly. When my father raised his glass, not wine, but hot tea, he said, "For the first time in my life, I don't know what the future holds. But I know it's not in my hands anymore. It's in the hands of those I understood the least." I looked around the table. No one was perfect. No one matched the magazine ideals we once chased. But everyone was trying, and for the first time, none of us felt abandoned. We all carry wounds from family, from words, unspoken gazes, never direct love, misplaced. But I believe no one is invisible forever, if we're brave enough to face it, forgiving enough to listen, and loving enough to heal. My story isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming self-worth, turning pain into drive distance, into connection. Because sometimes the greatest achievement isn't building an empire, it's returning to the family table with an open heart. If you've ever felt forgotten, fought to be seen, this story is for you. Share your thoughts below, or tell me your story. And if you want to join journeys of healing and understanding like this, follow the channel to catch the next stories. We're still writing our own chapters, and I believe you deserve to be heard.